Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And you know it is my goal each week to bring you not so normal topics and to kind of think around corners and talk to different kinds of thought leaders. And today I think you're really going to be excited about my guest. So I'd like to welcome Ken Rusk, author of the best-selling book, Blue Collar Cash. Ken specializes in mentoring and has coached hundreds of young people in areas such as short, mid, and long-term goal setting, life visualization, career paths, and sound financial planning. Boy, we all need that. He is passionate about helping people achieve their dreams regardless of their educational background or past. So thanks for joining us today, Ken.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know. It seems like it's been so long trying to get together for this podcast because, life, that thing.
Yeah, it happens. It's been kind of a whirlwind since I put the book out, and I think this podcast might be nearing the 200 number. So it's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to talk to you. So thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's a lot of guest appearances on a podcast.
Yeah.
That is a lot. I know I go and I do guest appearances sometimes, but I've not hit near that number of being on other people's podcasts. However, on our podcast, we're up to I think 224. So.
Well, and you're going to be the coolest one. So let's do it.
I love that you say that. First I'd like to share with our listeners how we got connected, because I think networking is such an important and critical piece of business, life, relationships, all of that. So do you remember how we got connected?
Yeah, I think it was through the Finn Partners, the PR firm that worked with me on the book for a while. They did a lot of great things, and obviously they brought me to you. So they're continuing to do those kinds of things for both of us. So that's great.
I'll tell you. So they've pitched many guests to me, and I don't think I've ever turned down a single guest that they've pitched to me. But the first time they pitched one, I was like, "Is this for real? Is this spam?" Why is somebody reaching out to me with such a great, well-written, intro and all this kind of stuff? And I was like, so I took a chance and I called them, and they weren't spam.
Well, not only that, but I mean, they don't, it seems to me that they know quality when they see it. So that's obviously a compliment to you that they reached out to. That's great.
Well, thank you. And that they keep reaching out to me. I love that. So especially now that you and I are connected, we're here today. So tell us about you.
Well, I guess you could say I've been called a construction blue collar entrepreneur kind of a person, and started digging ditches when I was 15. And I still do the same thing today, although I do it with the help of a lot of other people. So we started our company in Toledo, Ohio in 1986 with about 6 people. And now I think we're up to nearly 200. So it's been a heck of a ride.
So how or why did you become so passionate about educating or advocating for those without a college education?
Well, it's simple. One of the things that any economy needs is balance, right? So I would venture to say that by the time you put your 2 feet on the floor this morning and walked or drove or whatever you did to get to your job or your church or your school, you probably crossed 10,000 blue collar jobs that are still not only very viable today, but now more financially rewarding than ever. And I just needed to try to get the balance back, because, parents are kind of like the gatekeepers between their kids and the world, right? And they were kind of getting a little hoodwinked or a little brainwashed or kind of skewed towards it's either college or else. And they're listening to their guidance counselors and the teachers, and they're listening to colleges who obviously are incentivized to sell school for a living. And I just thought there needed to be some balance, because, we don't have a blue collar problem or an issue or a challenge. we have a blue collar crisis right now. And if we don't get our arms wrapped around it, you're going to be waiting 2 years for an electrician and paying what you'd pay a surgeon to get an outlet put in the wall. So, yeah, I just thought that there needed to be some balance. And that's why I started talking about it.
You know, I've really been in tune with this message, you know, coming from so many different directions, where before I'm one of those, and I don't know if you were or not, but I'm one of those that was raised, you will get a college education. There's no choice, right? And all three of my two other sisters and I were all raised that you shall go get a college education. And so, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a traditional college educated person. I dropped out the first time and didn't go back until I was in my late 20s. You know, I was like the oldest person in the room. Still, I will tell you that what I do today has nothing to do with what I went to school for. And I think we find a lot of those kids that experience that same misalignment with the education that they've chosen and the career path that they ultimately end up in. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, and you know, when a parent says you will get a college education, my first question is why? Okay, because I think parents are, again, I think their thought process is my kid's either going to be successful after having gone to college or not. And nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I wrote an open letter to parents a couple of years ago. I put it on my website and I said, listen, I understand you birthed your child, you fed your child, you clothed your child, you raised your child, you protected them, you tried to shelter them and teach them things that you knew. And you think that the only way to finish off your parenting is to have a degree hanging on their wall. And that just is, it's never been true. And I think that's what we have to caution ourselves again, because, you know, doing the research for the book, I was shocked to learn that 40% of kids go into college without having any idea why they're going there. Another 25% of them, once they decide, end up changing that to something else. But the worst stat of all of them was, of all those expensive degrees that people are borrowing money for, only 33% of the college degrees ever get used in the field that they studied. To me, that's a horribly inefficient system. And at least you need to think about that before you just go down that path, because your success as a parent isn't my kids are educated, college educated. Your success as a parent is my kids are financially independent. They think for themselves. They're problem solvers. They can do things. They can get in and out of challenges. That's what a successful parent is. So, and those aren't mutually exclusive. And that's why I thought, well, someone needs to start speaking up about this before it's too late.
I agree. And especially with, you know, I talk to those recent graduates all the time, you know, being a recruiter, you know, that's kind of what I do. And I can't tell you how many times I talk to them, and I specialize in accounting and finance placements, but how many times I talk to that young student that has just graduated with an accounting degree or a finance degree or even an economics degree, and they're like, I don't want to do that. I want to go be in marketing, or I want to go be in something else. And so, and I wish there was a way, and maybe you can share some insight with us. How do we help these kids, these young students, because they are still kids when they go to college, right? Would you agree with that? Their frontal lobe's not fully developed.
Yeah, I think. Well, not only do I agree with that for sure, but I think because kids, you know, going back to my high school, there was shop class in high school. So you could walk down the hallway and you could see someone changing a transmission on a Mustang, or you could see somebody, you know, doing someone's hair or nails, or you could see someone building a table out of wood, or wiring an outlet, or welding something. And that to me seemed like a pretty balanced thing, because half the jobs in the country today still require you to do something with these two things, right? Your hands. So it seemed to me that we kind of got away from that when we got rid of shop classes and replaced those rooms with computers. Computers are fine. We had to learn them, but why did it have to be one or the other? Why couldn't we have had both, right? So what you did is you eliminated the accidental discovery of millions of kids of how cool these trade jobs can be, right? If you pair that up with the fact that now kids are building things, you know, when I was younger, we'd run around the backyard and we'd build tree forts and we'd fix our bicycles, and we'd, do all those kinds of outdoor things. We used rakes and shovels and hoes and all that kind of stuff. Now kids are building cities on these things. Okay. It's not the same experience. So if you pair those two forces up with the fact that colleges are really good at selling themselves, it's like the perfect storm that's created this crisis. And again, you know, we still need these people to do these things. And for the person who thinks, you know what, I know the entire world is telling me that I need to go this way, but I'm going to go that way. And there's a silver lining there, because we're now seeing carpenters making 100,000 a year or more. We're seeing welders and pipe fitters making $100,000 to $150,000 a year. We're seeing truck drivers making 90,000 a year out of the gate. And not to say that you have to do that forever, but it sure gives you a good launch into the first 3 or 4 years of your life, versus borrowing a couple $100,000 to get a college degree that you're not going to use. Because if you do that math properly, there's a $400,000 swing from negative to positive in your asset base. By the time you're 23 years old, that can pay for a house, a 401k, an education for your kids if that's what they want to do. You can get a heck of a start in life that way. So all I'm saying is, I'm not against college. If you're going to operate on my shoulders so I can get back out on the golf course, I want you to know everything there is to know about a knife before you come at me with it, right? But at least you need to think about those numbers before you just arbitrarily follow the masses.
Absolutely. And I think that's so true. And, another point that I want to bring up, and it's not one that I don't think we talked about in our pre-interview, AI. AI is it's something that's really coming, and it's going to eliminate a lot of those education-led jobs. Whereas the blue collar, anywhere, like you said, any job where you still need your hands, AI is not eliminating those jobs anytime soon, not completely.
No, you're not going to see AI plant a tree in someone's front yard or do someone's hair and makeup. That's for sure. And it's one of those things where it's kind of scary, because everyone's at this. Remember the year 1999, and everybody thought, "Oh my gosh, when the
Y2K,
the world's gonna fall apart." I think we're kind of at that place right now. I can see AI being placed on the front blade of a bulldozer to help you cut down on how long you need to use that bulldozer to flatten out a parking lot, but it's not going to drive the bulldozer anytime soon. So it's an interesting thing, though, because people who thought some of the manual jobs would get eliminated were dead wrong, because it's kind of the opposite now. It's scary. If you ask AI a question, even a complicated one, it puts out an answer that you might have had to work on for hours to get. So yeah, I'm a little challenged by what the future of that's going to hold. I just hope that we all use it in a responsible way.
I did learn something interesting using ChatGPT today, because I was, doing a real tough search for one of my clients, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go see if ChatGPT can just go find these so I don't have to do it, right? Because I was having a hard time finding them. And
Sure.
It came back and it said, I can't do that for you. My information only goes back or up to 2021, a date in 2021. It doesn't go to the current, and it didn't have access to go out to the web to get additional information. So it did not present any candidates for me.
Well, maybe that's the Achilles heel of it. And hopefully, again, it's used in the proper way. I will say, I saw the other day a very popular podcast, one of the most popular podcasts in the world. And it not only recreated the voice of the podcaster, it recreated the voice of the guest, and it made up its own questions. And so there was an hour-long podcast that neither person participated in that had questions going back and forth. And it just blew my mind that it was that powerful, capable of doing that. So yeah, it's going to be a strange future, that's for sure.
Was that Joe Rogan that it did it with?
It was.
That's
Yeah,
what I thought.
I
I think I saw that. That was crazy. And yes, one of the most popular. But how do you know if that's a real podcast or not?
That's the challenge. Going forward, when you look on some of the social media things, you might see boxing matches from times ago, and maybe they're going to show the last 5 minutes of the boxing match, and you can tell every fifth one is not really real. You know what I mean? They're close, they're really good, But if you look at it, you're like, I'm not so sure that that actually happened. So that's one of the biggest problems, because I could be sitting here talking to you, and is that really you in the future? I mean, it's going to be really challenging for people. And I hope what it does at the end of the day, Casey, I hope what it does is it gets us all back to a place of reality. Like, my front yard playing frisbee with my kid is a much safer place than playing with chatbot. You know what I mean? Or walking my dog, or talking to my neighbor, or just doing the things that we used to do that seem normal. Maybe it'll drive us back into doing some of those things.
I hope so, because I think you're right. I mean, the days like when I was growing up, my mom would, during the summer, would kick us out in the morning, lock the door, and tell us to come back for dinner. And then she said something out on the stoop for lunch, but you didn't get to go in.
100%. That is so true. And
yeah,
I miss those days. Those are some good times back then.
But by golly, when she whistled, because she could do the big whistle, and you could hear her all around the neighborhood. She called all the kids. It was like a cattle call at night. When she whistled, you ran, no matter where you were.
Yeah, so. Not only did you eat dinner and you ate what she made, but my father used to say, nobody sits down until your mother sits down first. So, I washed the table. My brother swept the floor. My other brother cleaned the plates. My other brother did this and that. And, it was that's the way things are supposed to be back then. So hopefully we return to some of that.
Happy times, happy times. So speaking of happy times, what is the most important thing to talk about with a client when guiding them down the path to happiness later in life, like in their career?
I think you have to understand, and I use this analogy, it's a pretty simple one, but you probably have never gotten into your car, put the key in the ignition, turned it, put the car in reverse, backed out of your driveway, put it in drive, and then said, I have no idea where the heck I'm going, right? You always have a plan for what you're doing. You have a visual for where you're going, whether it's to school, to the mall, to meet your friends, or to work, or whatever. We are all so good at planning vacations, right? So, you buy the plane ticket to Florida, and then you get your hotel, and then you get yourself, well, I can't wait for this. I'm going to anticipate putting my feet in the sand and this warm sun on my face, and I'm going to smell that copper tone suntan lotion, and I'm going to get my drink and my music and whatever, right? If we're so good at planning just those simple little things, why are we not good at planning the rest of our life and anticipating the rest of the things in our life, whether it's 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, or maybe all those at the same time? I don't think that we live to work. I think that we work so that we can live. And since living is 2/3 of our life, why aren't we focused more on what that looks like and what that could be and how we could design it to our own personal perfect nirvana? Man, if I could live like that, that would be so cool. If I could do this with my house, and this with my dogs or cats or whatever, this with my give back moment, this with my sports and hobbies, this with my car, or whatever, my family, however you want to look at it. If I could live like that, that would be really cool. Why aren't we good at planning that? Why do we wait to live this if-then life? If I do all these things, then I can start living. Now, I want to know what the then looks like first, and then find a way to get there.
That is fascinating, and I think you're absolutely right. I think we do so many times walk down this journey and say, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy if. And forget that, but what do we have to be happy about right now? That's one of the reasons, and I've shared this before on the podcast, I'm just such an avid believer in the habit of a gratitude journal, because, I get up each morning and I'm like, what am I grateful for? And I think that grounds me back. And of course, how can you be in a bad mood if you start your day off with gratitude? But it grounds me back in that moment that I have a lot to be grateful for. But it also makes me think about, okay, so I was grateful for that yesterday. What can I do today to be grateful for? And when you're grateful, you find happiness.
You're 100% right on with that. I have a frame that rotates pictures, and that's one of my things I'm taking to Mars, by the way. I have a frame that rotates pictures, and it's right next to my protein shake station in the morning. And man, I stare at that thing while I'm making my protein shake, which is about 12 steps, but I can do it in my sleep. And I just see the things that I've done, the friends that I have, the family that I have, the memories I've made, the places I've been, and I just smile. And, if you talk about, maybe I don't write it down in a journal, but I have it in picture form, one picture after another, after another, after another. And I've never looked at that thing and not smiled. So I agree with you 100%. You need to be able to say to yourself, where am I at right now? How grateful I am for what I have, and what can I go create in the future?
I love that. You just gave me a really good idea. I think I'm going to add, as part of my gratitude, because I do this whole thing in the bathroom in the morning to high five yourself,
Sure.
in the mirror. I think I'm going to get one of those digital frames, kind of
Yeah.
like what you're talking, and just download all those memories so that it's just playing. Even if I don't actually look at it, every single picture, just have it playing constantly, because something's going to seep into your subconscious, right?
And there's times where I will laugh out loud because I forgot some goofy picture of me with my dogs, or something that my brother did, or my family did, or it's funny. I'll be mixing my stuff, and I'll look over and I'll just laugh out loud, and I'll go, "Oh my God, I forgot that even happened." And it just adds to all that feeling of, you know what, things are pretty good. I've done some cool things, and I've had some great memories doing it.
So, and I love that. And I'm real curious though, kind of going back to the careers. I shared with you I'm a non-traditional college student. I'm also non-traditional in my career, and that I did a big pivot to change to recruiting from my original career. So, in your opinion, is it ever too late to change career paths?
Well, I have to be honest with you. There are three readers for my book, and the one in the middle was the one that was a little shocking. So I figured I would get readers from 15 to 25 who were kind of starting out in life and planning what they wanted their life to look like. I also figured I would get some business owners who were trying to surround themselves with a whole bunch of really solid entrepreneurs that could help drive their business forward by using the visionary parts of my book. But the one thing that I was surprised about was how many people said, Ken, I was a plumber's assistant when I was going through college, and I loved doing that. I got my degree because my parents said I had to. Now I've been 10 years into this sales job and sitting in the middle of this cubicle on the 15th floor, and I hate it. So I read your book. I quit my job. I went back to becoming that plumber that I wanted to be, running my own little business. I've never been so happy. So, yeah, I don't think it's too late to transition back to doing things that you love, because, you know, today is the first day of the rest of your life, and you either got to get busy living, or you're going to get busy doing the opposite of that.
I love how you just said that. This is the first day of the rest of your life. When I switched to recruiting, my family thought I was absolutely insane. They're like, you have a career, in accounting, you've been doing this for so long. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't love it. And this sounds really fun. And I'm telling you, I've never looked back. So I love that you give that advice just to move forward, and I always told myself, if I don't love it, I can go back. I can go back to accounting.
The beautiful part of who you are, and I've only talked to you for a few minutes now, but the beautiful part of who you are is you're someone that needs to engage. You're not someone that should be staring at a column full of numbers. I'm dead serious. I mean, I could, if you'd have asked me what career you were studying for, accounting would have been the last one I would have picked, because you're look at what you're doing with me right now. We're having this wonderful conversation to try to not only help each other but other people's lives. And when I think of who you are, this is exactly what you need to be doing. You need to be in some type of people business. That's for absolute certain.
I absolutely, when I found my calling in recruiting, I tell people I found my wings. That's when I started to spread and grow, was because I realized I'd been holding back on the gift that I have for building relationships. And once I embraced that and I'm able to use that with recruiting, it's a whole new world. It was so beautiful.
And here's the thing. Pretty sure you could have that recruiting job without a college education.
Oh, for
Okay.
sure.
I mean, you could develop relationships just because of